Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. Hey Roel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, really good. Today we're gonna talk about WLAN Pi. So it's always nice. I really like the little tool. And what we wanted to do is try to see if we could actually configure a radio server on the WLAN Pi. Exactly, you have one right there.
I got a
So we
WLAN Pi with me.
have the special black edition,
Oh, you got the I got
which
the
is
one. I've got the orange and gray one that I purchased at WLPC conference in Prague. I got two of them, and I'm gonna be using them. One of them for a walkthrough today at a warehouse. So it's always fun to talk about WLAN Pi, and we've got a live lab that you're gonna be going through.
yes. I love live labs, I guess. Okay, try to see if it works. But if you guys don't know the WLAN Pi, we're gonna put some links in the show notes so you can get an overview of what it is, what you can do with it. But it's pretty much a small board computer with a whole bunch of Wi-Fi tools that you can use, for a whole bunch of different things as a Wi-Fi engineer. You can use it to do wall attenuations. You can use it to connect to a console port wirelessly. You can use it to what else can you do? A
Set up
profiler.
a
There's a tool
hotspot.
where you can set up a hotspot. You can profile Wi-Fi devices. So you can do a whole bunch of things. There is like a team of Wi-Fi guys behind it. So we'll put links so you guys can know what you can do and with the tool. And what since it's like Linux based, we wanted to try to see if we could actually configure a radius server, a free radius server on the WLAN Pi very quickly. So we could actually also use it as a radius server in a lab environment, or if we quickly need to set up something to test .1x authentication on Wi-Fi. So that's pretty much the goal of today. And then, like Roel said, we're going to try to do it on the show. So if you were listening to this, you should also try to bookmark the video because we're going to be showcasing the comments that you need to enter to configure that on the WLAN Pi. And then if you're just watching, you can just follow along, I guess, with us. Our plan is to make it very simple today. So we're going to try to be as bare bone as possible when it comes to the radius configuration, so we can get something ready and working pretty fast. And then on top of that, if you guys want to add, we'll talk about what we could do when we're done. But if you want to add on top of that, you could certainly do it with the WLAN Pi running on Linux. So,
Yeah,
do you
this
want
will
to
be
add
great.
anything?
Yeah, this will be great for people who are studying for the CWSP. If you want to see
Mhm.
radius go through, right, and also for the CWAP to capture those frames and see the different frame transactions that occur. And so the WLAN Pi is a really small, neat little tool that you can just carry around with you. It has mine has a USB-C adapter, so I just plug it into my laptop, and you could access it locally and be able to do any kind of testing you want to do. So we've done previous videos and a couple of episodes about WLAN Pi because we do use it for a lot of different testing, and it works very well for some small testing that we want to do.
And so just to tell you guys about the setup that I have right now to make this work, I pretty much have my WLAN Pi connected to my local network. So I have a switch on my desk next to me, and I've just connected the WLAN Pi. So the Ethernet, let me try to come into the frame here. Yeah, I've just connected the Ethernet connection into my switch, right? And then on the other end, it's just me powering my WLAN Pi, which I just have a battery pack here. So when you connect the WLAN Pi to your LAN, you should be receiving an IP address, a DHCP IP address. That's going to be important for us today because that's going to be the IP address of our radius server. So you want to find that out. So once you connected your little WLAN Pi, you want to take a look at the screen. Let me see if I can
Yeah, you
focus
want
there.
to, yeah, I can see that on the WLAN Pi, there's a little screen there which will show the IP address of the LAN Ethernet connection from your DHCP server. And like you said, that is the connection for everything else on your network, since the Radius server needs to be accessible by your Wi-Fi network as you're going to configure for your SSID.
Exactly. So as you can see, I have right now an IP address of 192.168.120.14. So I'm going to remember that IP address because that's going to be the IP address of my server. So what I'll do is I'll move to my terminal window. Well, I'm sure you're taking care of that. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
So
So first thing, yeah,
so you're using
I'll
iTerm, right?
yeah, I'm using iTerm on macOS. If you guys are wondering. First thing I like to do is just make sure that I can actually reach my WLAN Pi from my laptop, which is connected on another network, but it's in the same. I mean, it's in the same house here, so just another subnet. So I'm gonna try to see if I can ping WLAN Pi.
All
It
right, you got
works, which is the
some
good news.
ping response. That's good.
So what I'll do is I'll just SSH into the WLAN Pi, and we'll do all the configurations directly from the WLAN Pi. So I'm just going to SSH. By default, the username to SSH into the WLAN Pi is WLAN Pi. Super easy to remember. Then I'm just going to put the IP address and then the password. So here, oh yeah, because I did some work yesterday. So let me try to, here are my keys. I'm going to do that right now. This is a live demo. So for you guys listening, it's just giving me an error because I've been playing with it, resetting, and
You
then I
got,
have my
yeah,
SSH keys.
you change your SSH keys. I run into this all the time, so it's a common thing that we all have to deal with. Is you got to remove that host from the file.
Exactly. What I do is I don't remove the host; I just remove everything. So that's that's what this does. So I'm pretty much entering nothing into this file, the known
Oh,
host
you're
file.
emptying it
So
out. Okay.
yeah, it's just easier for me. You see, it took 2 seconds.
Yeah,
So
it's quick. You don't have to search for it.
exactly. Um, so I'm now SSH into my WLAN Pi. When you SSH into your WLAN Pi, you'll see this nice kind of
It's like a banner.
home.
Yeah, it's got a nice
Yeah,
banner that the developers have put into this, which the WLAN Pi has a good support system.
hmm It's
The people
amazing.
doing it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, they do a lot of amazing work. Um, Yeah, so now the first thing that I want to do is we're actually going to use a program called FreeRADIUS, and FreeRADIUS it's an open source radius server. You can install it on any Linux you want, and you can use the apt-get to install the packages. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. First, I need to make sure the WLAN Pi has internet access. Right. So, Roel, what's your favorite website? Try to ping your
Uh,
favorite website.
cleartosend.net.
ClearToSend.net. Yeah, it's not too bad. I know this one. It's not too bad. Oh, it works. Okay, awesome.
Oh,
So
that's
this
whew.
means we have the first one to kill you a while, huh? The first ping
Yeah.
to come back.
Yeah, if that
Uh,
didn't work, I'd have to stop this recording and figure out what's up with the website.
it's okay. It's just a DNS request probably. Anyway, so it works. I have internet access. So now I can just download and install my packages. So I'm going to do sudo apt-get install. And here I'm going to install two different packages. I'm going to install the FreeRADIUS one, which is just called FreeRADIUS. And then I'm going to install another one called FreeRADIUS-utils. And in this one, we're actually going to be able to use another tool that's called a RAD test that allows you to test your Radius server locally once you install it. If you want to just test it locally, make sure it works, you can use that RAD test command, and it's part of the FreeRADIUS utils. So that's optional, so you don't have to install them. But we're just going to do it here so I can show you guys.
Okay, so by default, the WLAN Pi does not come with FreeRADIUS pre-installed. You have to at least understand some Linux because you have to SSH into the WLAN Pi and then install these packages so we can use FreeRADIUS.
Yeah, and I think the WLAN Pi is a great way to get into Linux, If you're a Wi-Fi guy and you don't not too sure about Linux, it's a great way to just get in there and see what you can do. And even if you break it, you can just reimage it.
Yeah.
I did it this morning with Wall. It took
Yeah.
it took 5 minutes.
We had to do
Yeah,
this before we made sure to test this before we started recording, and of course it didn't work for you. And
yeah,
as long as you've got, I guess, the SD card reader and you could plug it into your laptop, there is a great tutorial by Nigel Moden who tells you who runs through the whole process of getting the image and putting that onto the card using this application called Etcher. And yeah, it's very simple to do as we wait
yeah,
for this FreeRADIUS
yeah.
download to complete.
It did say it's going to take a long time. What I wanted to mention as well is we're starting this from a brand new image. So we just reimaged the WLAN Pi. We're using the 2.0 version, which is the latest version available. So we're doing this from pretty much from a blank version of the WLAN Pi. We didn't do anything fancy before that.
Yeah, so it's a clean slate,
Um,
right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I wanted to say, but it took me 3 sentences.
No, it's fine. Wait, all right, and so
So
if you're wanting to use FreeRADIUS, do not use a WLAN Pi as your production FreeRADIUS server.
yes, yeah, I guess we didn't mention that. I mean, you could, depends on your production, right? If your production network is your house, you could. Actually, you know what? FreeRADIUS is actually very powerful if you want to install it in a production environment. You obviously you can install it on a beefier server, maybe on a couple of servers, but you can actually do a lot of things with it. You can manage larger networks for sure.
Yeah, and I've seen it in large networks, especially in my environment where we use FreeRADIUS. It is very extensive, so you have a lot of capability there. You just need the expertise to run FreeRADIUS if all of your authentication is going to rely on this.
All right, so it's done installing. Quick update for you guys listening. It's done installing. So it took a minute, 2 minutes, I would say, to install. Um, and now what we need to do is we actually need to configure it. The configuration is not crazy because by default, FreeRADIUS is kind of set up to work. So actually, I think when you install it, it just starts the service. So let's take a look at this. If I do
Yeah, let's
service,
verify it.
yeah, FreeRADIUS status, and it's running.
It's
So actually,
active. Okay.
it's active, yeah. So when you install it, it's going to start running the service. I'm going to stop it because I'm going to mess with the configuration. So when you mess with the configuration, you usually want to stop it and restart it once you're done messing with the configurations, so you can actually be taking into account. So to stop the FreeRADIUS servers, it's very easy. I can just type the command service space FreeRADIUS space stop. And then it's going to take a little while, a couple of seconds, and then the prompt will come back to me. It's actually asking me for my password here, so I just put the password. And then now it's down. I can re-enter the status command, the service FreeRADIUS status, and now it's telling me it's inactive. So I'm ready to start the configurations. And to do the configuration for the FreeRADIUS, I've found that it's easier to go into the root mode because all of the files are like root protected. So it's just easier to do that. That's what I was doing when I was preparing this. So to navigate into the root mode, you can do sudo space -i or -i. I don't know. I always like to say minus, but you get the point. And then you're going to enter into the root mode, and then all the configuration files for FreeRADIUS are located under etc FreeRADIUS, and then
So you just change directories to that
yeah,
FreeRADIUS directory under etc, and then I guess the version 3.0.
exactly. So I'm doing a cd, so change directory to /etc/FreeRADIUS/3.0, and then when I get there, if I list my files, this is where I have all the configuration files for FreeRADIUS. So
Yep.
we have to configure a couple of things here. 3 things we have to configure. The first one is what they call the clients. So the clients is whichever stations are authorized to send requests to the Radius server. So in our case, that would be our APs. Okay, so to test all of this out, we'll use have a Mist AP in my lab that I can use to configure, an .1x SSID on. So I need to make sure that when that AP sends those Radius requests, I need to make sure that they're accepted by the Radius server. And to do that, we're going to have to configure the client's .conf file. So that's the first thing. Next thing is I wanna test PEEP MSHA v2 because it's the easiest way, it's the easiest method to test from my phone, and it's widely supported out there. So we need to configure FreeRADIUS to actually enable and use PEEP MSHA v2. So we'll do that. And the last thing we need to do is create users, so I can actually know which users will be authenticated. So I have to create a user to be able to connect. And the user, I will use it when I connect to, from my phone. They'll ask me username, password. I'll put those credentials, and then that will work if I define them in my configurations. Sounds good?
Sorry, I was muted because I was drinking coffee.
No problem.
It sounds good.
So,
and it's pretty much the same type of configuration in any environment, because this FreeRADIUS install, even though it is on WLAN Pi, it's going to be very similar to when you install it on a Linux server that you would probably use for production. So it's very similar. You're going to enable all those security methods that you need to use, and install the or type in the clients. Yeah, looks and sounds familiar from the last time I played with FreeRADIUS, but I will definitely follow this after you're done. I just want to make sure you do it first.
let's just make sure it works, right? Okay. So to configure the client, so to configure the devices that will be sending those requests. So usually in an environment, in a production environment, it would be your APs or your controller if you have a controller. So to do that, we have to modify the clients.conf file. So I'm just going to open that. I'm going to use Nano for that, which is a little text editor you can use on Linux. You can use VI as well if you know how to use VI. Here, for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to use Nano. And then if I go all the way at the bottom, you'll see that they'll give you some examples in the files. They have some example that they kind of comment out. Comment. And so what I want to do is, what I'm going to do is going to be very similar to something like this here. So I want to define pretty much, where my clients are located, where my APs are located. So here you can do that specific for one IP address. If you have if you're expecting all of your Radius requests to come from one controller, you could do you could specify a client for just that controller, or you could do a client for an entire network. So that's what I'm going to do here. It's easier in my lab. So I'm going to use a client and then space, and then I'm going to specify my subnet, which in my case here, it's 192.168.120.0/24. And then inside that client object, I need to specify a secret.
Yeah, so you're putting a bracket. You did an open and close bracket, and in between those brackets, you're going to type in your secret, which is the password that you need to use on the device that's doing the authentication.
Exactly. The purpose of the secret is to make sure that whoever is sending those Radius requests are authorized to do so and can authenticate itself to the Radius server. So when my Mist AP will send those requests, it will just use that secret password, and then my Radius server will know that this device is good to go. It's part of my subnet that I've defined here, and it's using the proper secret.
Yeah. And so for security purposes in a production network, you probably wouldn't use a whole subnet, because you want to specify which network device can query this Radius server, or you can specify each network device and put in a different secret passphrase for each network device.
Yeah, that's probably the way to do it, and probably use a better secret than clear to send 123, which is what I've used here.
At least it's
Okay.
simple for the lab,
Yeah.
and we don't have to worry about missing characters, special characters. We just want to make this
Mhm.
work on this first try.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is all good. So I'm just going to save this. And as that's it, I've configured my clients. Now, if I want to configure, FreeRADIUS to use PEEP, I have to go into the mods enable folder here, and I have to modify a file. So let me just go in there, cd mods enabled. And then if I look at my files here, you're going to see something called EEP, right? And so in this configuration file, that's where you configure which EEP methods you want to use. You can go very fancy and have different methods enabled. For us, we just want to use PEEP. So what we'll do is I'm going to open this file with nano, so nano EEP, and then I'm going to change the default EEP type.
Yeah, what is
And
the
it's going to
default?
be the first, yeah, it's going to be the first configuration you see in the file. And by default, it's using MD5. So I'm just going to replace that with PEEP. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah,
So
and
here I can just
there's
save
good
that.
documentation within that file too from FreeRADIUS that kind of describes what the EAT methods are. Um,
Mhm.
so that way, and this is something that you have to look into what's being supported in your network, and how easy or how challenging you want this to be for authentication.
Yeah, exactly. So that's for us, we're just going to use PEEP as a default. And when you use PEEP, you always have like an inner EEP method within your PEEP tunnel. So we have to define which inner method we want to use. And here we're going to use MSSHAP v2, which is widely supported out there. So we actually have to also configure the file that's called MSSHAP right there in the same
Okay.
directory in the mods enable. We have to configure and enable MSSHAP. So it's very similar if I go back and open it with nano, so a nano ms chap. Then what I have to do is under the ms chap object, I have to uncomment the use underscore mppe, and I have to set it to yes, right? And then I have to also uncomment the require encryption, is a second configuration line. And then the third configuration line, I have to uncomment as well and configure the require strong. And if I do that, if I save, I'm pretty much done configuring MS-SHAP v2.
All right.
It wasn't too hard, right?
No, that seems pretty easy.
Yeah. So far, what we've done is, configure our client lists to make sure that our AP can send radius request to the FreeRADIUS server, to the WLAN Pi. We've configured PEEP as our default EEP methods, and we've configured MSFv2 as our inner EEP method for PEEP. So now I'm going to go back cd dot dot. So I'm going to go back one directory, and then the last thing we need to do is define our users. Okay, and the way you do that is you define it in the users folder here. So here, if I do nano users, what I do is at the very top, I just define them right there at the very top. If you go down into this file, you'll see that they show you how to do it. But I'll just do it here at the top. And then here you just specify the user you want to use. So I'm just going to specify one called Francois. And then here you're going to use the keyword clear text dash password. And then you can define with a colon equal, you can define the password you want to use. So I'm going to use Francois CTS 123.
Yeah, this is great for testing. You don't want to add all your users into this file with clear text passwords. You probably want to use a directory in this case where all your users already exist. For example, like Active Directory where their passwords are there. I believe there's a way to tie that in with FreeRADIUS
Yes.
if you really want to test it. Go that far testing, but we're just doing the basic adding a username and with a clear text password just to make sure this works.
Exactly. This is a very basic. What you can also do is install the MySQL database and install like a very basic web server. So instead of doing all of this via SSH, you could actually have a web UI where you enter your users, and you could do something like that as well. But But here, like you said, well, very simple. I've just defined two users, Francois, Roel, with the different passwords, and these users will be able to connect. So I can just save this file, and there I'm pretty much done my FreeRADIUS configurations.
That's it, right? Three different sections.
Yeah.
You did your users, you did your EAP method, and your clients. 3 different locations, and we should be able to test this now, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought yesterday when I tried it out, but then it didn't work.
What?
Yeah, it didn't work. So I guess I can show you the issue I had yesterday, and then I'll show you what I did to fix it. So right now, FreeRADIUS is configured, ready to go. So I could actually start up the service. So to start the service, I have 2 ways of doing it. I could do it using the service command. So I could do service FreeRADIUS start. I don't do that right now here because I would prefer to see the debug commands, and I would prefer to see the request coming in to make sure it's working. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to use the FreeRADIUS command right away. So the FreeRADIUS, and then if you do minus capital X, it's going to show you the debugs output. So if I do this, it just outputs a whole bunch of things, and then it's telling me that it's listening on port 1812, which is a default UDP port for Radius, and then it's telling me I'm ready to process request.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good. The next thing we need to do is we actually need to configure our SSID.
Oh yeah, can't forget that.
Yeah, I can't forget that. So I'm going to go to my Mist dashboard. I have a site for my lab where I have one access point. And then so here, I'm going to go to my network WLANs, and we're going to do that together. We're going to create a WLAN profile. So I click on add WLAN. We're going to give it a name. So
I'm surprised you're not just going to script this out.
Yeah, I mean, I could. That'd be cool. So what name do you want? CTS?
Let's do WLAN. CTS WLAN Pi. Yeah. Very awesome. Creative for us.
Very creative. CTS WLAN Pi. And then what I want to do is I'm going to put it on 5 gigahertz. Why not? I'm going to do high density, right? Because it's high density in my house. My AP is actually not a Wi-Fi 6, so you know what? I'm actually going to disable Wi-Fi 6. And then under the security, that's where the magic happens, I guess.
Yeah,
we have to select the most important part. We have to select WPA2/EAP 802.1x. So I select this. And when you select this, you'll see that Mist will tell you need at least 1 Radius authentication server to be added.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We've just configured it.
Oh, and there you go, down below. And just for those who are not using Mist, it will probably be called WPA2 Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you should have a section under security that allows you to add a Radius server, whichever vendor you're using. So here under my Radius authentication servers, I have an option to add a server. So I'm just going to click on add a server, and I'm going to put the IP address of my server. So if you guys have been following, you should know it's 192.168.120.14. I'm going to use the default port 1812 because that's the one we're using. And then the shared secret, also if you've been following, you should know that it's here to send 123. And then I can just add the server. I could also add the accounting because it's configured by default. So if I do 192, same information, same server, 120.
Yeah, and also the same default port as we saw when you did the debug command on the FreeRADIUS server.
Yes, exactly, which is UDP 1813. Okay, and then the last thing I need to do for my WLAN to work here is I need to actually put it on a VLAN. So I'm going to put it on VLAN 188, which is the one I use in my lab. And then that's it. I can just create it. And then it should start broadcasting in a little while. I should start to see this SSID on my phone.
Okay.
Before we go on my phone, what I want to do is go back on the WLAN Pi. And we're going to use that little rad test application to test our Radius server. Okay. So what we'll do is I have this guy running here. So I'm going to leave it on this tab. I'm going to use another tab here, not this one. I'm going to open a new tab, make it bigger a little bit. And then I'm going to SSH back into the WLAN Pi so I can have two different commands
because
here.
you want to keep that debug window open just to confirm that you can see the user logging in. That's what you're going to do, right?
Exactly. Thank you, Roa, for explaining what I had in mind. Yeah, exactly. I want to keep this one in so as the request comes in, we can actually see them.
Yeah. So it's a log that's just actively, because you use the uppercase X flag, which is a debug mode to show any logs that appear. And so you're opening up a new SSH session to the WLAN Pi just so you can use the rad test command, which will test the user account to make sure it actually logs in.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm doing like a local host type of test to make sure that the Radius server is up and running and to make sure that it's responding to our requests, but just locally on the WLAN
Locally
Pi.
first, yeah.
Yeah. So here, if I do a netstat minus NA, I can actually see different network stats on my WLAN Pi. And if I go all the way up, you will be able to see that UDP 1812 here is listening, and UDP 1813 as well is listening. So this means the Radius service is up and running, if you see that.
Yep.
So the rad test, it's called rad test, and then you have to specify the username. So I'm gonna use your username, Roel. So I'm gonna put your username, and then I have to put your password. Let me just double check the actual command. Yeah, so I have to put your username and then your password, which is Roel. It's not your real password for people listening, but it's just one I made up for you. Roel CTS 123. And then we have to specify the IP of the Radius server, which is localhost for us. And then we have to specify the which is by default testing 123.
The secret.
Okay. The secret. So the rad test tool is authenticated to send that request.
So the full command is rad test username, password, IP address of the Radius server. You have 0, which means clear text for the secret that's following that.
Testing 123.
Right.
I actually don't know exactly what the 0 means. It might be a metric too. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I was wrong in assuming that.
I don't know. Maybe some people know listening and they can tell us. I'll be glad to know. But that's what I found online, and it kind of works. So if I execute that, the WLAN Pi will send, is it going to work?
Is it going to work?
And it did. How fast was that? Look at that.
Yeah.
We're just localhost.
So localhost, yeah, so fast.
So here I can see that I've received an access accept, which is, if you work with Radius, that's what you want. Trust me. The access accept.
Yeah, that's the all good green light. Radius server accepted my user account because I am on the users list with the right password there that you used.
Exactly. And if I go back to my Radius service logs, then I can see all of that good information. All right. And then if I go back, it's a lot of
there's a lot of logs.
It's a lot of verbose, but you can see, the username was Roel, and you can see they're going to tell you if it was, a proper password. You see, I received it from my localhost. This is the username. This is the password, which is Roel CTS 123. And so you can see everything. You can see the messages exchanged. And then
it's really at the end, good logging for troubleshooting, because I know we all know as Wi-Fi guys, when authentication doesn't work, people will say, hey, Wi-Fi doesn't work. And the server guy, if there is a server guy on your network, didn't check the logs and isn't able to see that, oh, this user's password is incorrect, or maybe it's coming from a rogue host, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a rogue
Yeah,
AP that's somehow trying to use
it's
your
not
Radius
authorized.
server. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can have a lot, as you can see, you can have a lot of things going wrong with Radius. So it's important to know how it works, so you can know how to which part to troubleshoot, like you said. Okay, so that it sounds good, right? It works locally. The Radius server is up. If I want to do the same thing with my username, let's be wild and test that out. So if I do, let's say I put my username but your password,
Yeah.
and that should fail, right? So let's try it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it failed. I
Access
received an
reject.
access reject. But now if I put the real password, then it should work.
Very good.
Accept. So now we know it works,
Yeah.
right? But does it really? Let's see. So we have the SSID configured. We have the Radius server configured. Now let me connect my phone. So what I'll do is I'll try to share my phone with you guys.
The real test.
Yeah, the real test.
So lots of variables here because you're going to try to share your screen also.
Yeah, I'm going to start to share my screen. Let's try to find an empty desktop. Okay, can you see that?
Yep. So I'm sharing your screen. I can see you're using Reflector, I think, to share your screen.
Yes. Yes, I'm using a reflector so I can stream my phone. And so I'm just going to go to my Wi-Fi settings.
Are we going
And
to
here I can
lose your
see.
connection if you change your SSID?
No, I already did it. I'm on my lab. My laptop is connected to my production environment, and I'm doing all of this in my lab. So
Okay.
there's no problem.
All right.
So yeah, we see the CTS
Oh
WLAN
yeah, there it is. Yeah.
PI. Yeah. So if I click on it, then it's asking me, okay, which IP methods do you want? So I'm going to leave it to PIP, which is the default on my phone. And then it's asking me for the identity. So it's pretty much asking me for my password. So I can, my username, sorry. So I can just put Francois. And then it's asking me for my password. So I can put Francois CTS123. And then you have this certificate thing, right? So in a production environment, you want to make sure that you have a CA certificate, so the devices can actually authenticate the Radius server and know who they are, because if you don't, it's a big security threat. In my case, I didn't create any certificates on my WLAN Pi, so I'm going to select don't validate, but just once again, don't do that in the real world. This is just for my testing here in my lab. Yeah, that can be dangerous. You could have people with
Yeah.
rogue Radius servers and
Right.
always
Yeah.
accepting your.
Yeah. The certificates used to authenticate to help confirm the identity of the actual Radius server.
Mhm. Exactly. And then I'm going to go to advanced. And as there's something I do when I do my testing is I go to MAC address type, and I instead of having the randomized MAC address, I use the phone MAC address, so I can actually debug if something is going wrong.
Okay.
I can know that it's using my phone MAC address. Okay, and then I can try to connect, and I click on connect, and then
we wait.
what happens? And then we wait, and then nothing happens, right? Nothing happens on my phone. Let's try to see what's going on my WLAN Pi. Am I receiving anything on my
Are you
Radius
getting any
server?
logs?
I'm
Because
not
you are
getting
running it.
anything. Yeah. So that's the issue I was running into yesterday. I was like, everything was configured properly.
That output is not the one you just did, right? That was for your last.
No, that was from the RAD test.
Okay.
The different tests we did. So we did 3 tests. So you see on the left here, you have a number into parentheses.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, so you're gonna have 0, 1, 2, which is the 3 tests we did. Yeah. So here I'm still, the server is still ready to request, but I'm not receiving anything.
Right.
So when this happened to me, usually when this happens, it's because we're not able to communicate with the Radius server. So I went back to my MIS configuration, make sure the secret was good, make sure the IP address was good, and everything was good. So I was like, what's going on? And then what I did is I went back to my WLAN Pi, and I used the TCP dump command to see if I was seeing those requests coming in. Okay.
All right.
So I'll show you the command I was using, TCP dump, and I was doing the TCP dump only on the Ethernet interface. I might need sudo for that, so I'll do sudo TCP dump, and then -I to specify the interface, which is the Ethernet 0, and then I have to specify the port, which is UDP port 1812. If you don't want to see everything coming in,
Right.
you can specify the
You're
port
filtering it.
by
Okay.
filtering. And so here it's just listening on the interface to see if you can see any incoming requests. So if
Okay.
I go back on my phone and I try to connect again,
Yeah, so we should see if the AP is sending the requests to the Radius server. We should see at least the packets come in.
yes.
So far, no.
So far nothing. So let me try to connect again on my
Okay, there's the access request.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can see that we're receiving an access request from 192.168.120.11. Okay. If I go back to my Mist dashboard and if I go to my access point.
Yeah, is that your access point? Okay.
Yeah. That's the IP of my access point. So this means that the access point is sending those radius requests. It's reaching my WLAN Pi, but somehow it's not reaching my radius server.
Okay.
Okay. And so when I saw that, that's when it kind of clicked. It was like, shoot,
Yeah.
it's probably local to my WLAN Pi. and then I started to look at, oh yeah, maybe the firewall is running. So
does it have a
on
firewall?
Linux, man, it does. I'll show you. So on Linux, usually the firewall is an application called UFW.
Yeah.
So if you want to check if it's running, you can just do a service, UFW status. Boom. What did I see?
It's active.
Yeah. So
you
here,
have to add a rule.
Yeah, you have to add a rule to allow radius, right?
Yeah.
And then this is very simple. Let me just make sure I have it ready here. Yeah, this is very simple. It's just sudo UFW for the application, allow radius. That's it.
And does that add both UDP port 1812 and 1813?
I don't know. You're asking too much, Roa.
It does add for IPv4 and IPv6. I do see that as the output there. Okay.
So I've just added the rule, and so now if I test it again, let me clear up. I'm gonna run that TCP dump again. Okay.
All right.
And then I have the request here.
There it is.
So now let me go back to my phone. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah, you're still sharing your screen, but we don't see your phone. We see your Bob Marley quote.
Yeah, exactly. You guys, I'm not gonna. You're gonna have to watch the video for that one. Okay, I'm connected. So now I'm gonna go back to my Wi-Fi settings. And so here, I'm connected.
You're already connected.
So it connected in the background. So let me forget. It's a good sign. Let me forget the network, and let's do it again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to. Oh yeah, you're right. When you said I'm gonna be disconnected, it's because I'm using Reflector, right?
Yeah.
now I get what you're saying. Okay, so I'm gonna do it again. CTS WLAN Pi. So I'm gonna set up Francois.
Yeah, put in.
And then
you got your EAP method selected, your username, and your password that you have configured on your client or your user's file. And then you're going to not validate the certificate.
Yes.
And use your
and then
phone
I go
Mac.
back to I use my phone Mac, and then I connect. And then you just lost my connection on Reflector, but on my phone it says connected. So if I connect back to Reflector, then you can see I'm connected now.
All right.
And if I click on it, woohoo! You can see I'm connected. You can see it's WPA2 Enterprise, and I got an IP address 188.3. So now if we go back to the logs, you can see that, I'm up to 20 now. So it received a
Oh
couple of
yeah, there you
requests
go.
from me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
updated.
So
You got new packet IDs.
if I look at number 20 and I go back to the top of that request, we'll
You
see
should
that.
see, yeah. There's the receive access request is coming from the AP right there. It
Mhm.
shows the IP address of the AP and your MAC address. There you go. The called station ID shows your
Yeah.
MAC address and the SSID.
And this is when it's nice to study a couple of things on how everything works. You can see the radio server is receiving my identity, the username. It's also receiving the MAC address of the AP and the SSID name. So, depending on what you're receiving in FreeRADIUS, you could have different rules that says, if the person is connecting to that network, then I'm gonna, validate, the user against different database and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so here, if I go at the end, you'll see that I'm getting an access. If I go all the way at the bottom, send an access accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's sent back to the AP, and then the AP just allow the client to connect. So that's good. And then if I go back to my TCP dump, then you see those
There it is. Yeah. There's
exchanges.
the request. So this is this is a great way to learn for the CWAP and CWSP to see those transactions. So you see the access request, a challenge, and then the access accept, right? And then you could even, if you got a sidekick, you could do a capture, like how capture over the air, and look at the frames that way too. So you can validate everything from the wired side to the wireless side as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And with TCP dump, you could also get more details if you want to. You could also save it as a PCAP if you want to open it to Wireshark later on. You could do some stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to
So
capture the wired and wireless, two different PCAPs, and
mhm,
then just merge them, and you've got the full conversation.
that would be nice. Challenge accepted.
You got to make the request first.
So to close the loop, I just want to go back to my Mist interface, and we'll go to the Wi-Fi clients, and then I should see Francois here connected. Ooh, it just magically appeared like this.
Yeah, there you go.
So you can see my phone is connected. If I go to the client insight, I should see that it
Oh, you got
failed.
the failures, yeah.
Yeah,
And you
you
can
get
probably
the
download the
failures.
PCAP from Mist in this dashboard, right? If it has a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It already has the failure code. So
Yeah, it's telling me. So if I click on it, it's telling me that the AP de-authenticated the AP before the authorization completed because we got a timeout from the radius server.
yeah.
So it's the AP telling me that the radius server is not responding.
That's really awesome, because then as you're troubleshooting, so as troubleshooting goes, a lot of times we have no idea what is happening on a wireless network. So with this scenario here, especially with Mist, it's telling you why it's not working. So you could send this over to whoever's managing the server and tell them to, hey, maybe the firewall.
It's a server now.
Yeah, it's a server issue. It's not the network.
There's server in the error message. It must be a server issue.
Yeah, and then the server guy will point it at the firewall guy, saying, "Hey, check is the firewall okay?"
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great.
Oh.
It's a good sequence, a good log, and then you could download the packet capture and actually see that the output. But yeah, you successfully connected. Now you've got a nice lab going with your lab AP. You got a full the full gamut of equipment to test, especially using the phone as well.
Yes. So you could. I guess our setup here was very simple. If you think about FreeRADIUS, it's just like EPEEP with MSHA v2. We didn't go into the certificates and stuff like this. But if you're setting up like a lab for your house, you could go one step further, and you could use OpenSSL on Linux to create your certificates. So you could create like a CS certificate that you download and install on your phone as well. If you want to use a CS certificate, And then you could even push it one step further if you want to use IP TLS instead of IPIP to do the authentication. You want to use IP TLS. Then you could generate client certificates using OpenSSL as well. So that's something you can. I think you can. I've never tried on the WLAN Pi,
WLAN Pi, yeah, it's worth trying
but I
out.
think
You should be able to do and then test all the different EAP methods out, understand how they work, because you will have to know how those differ and how they work for the CWNP exams.
yes, yes. So you can really get your hand into there and try it out. The OpenSSL. I did it a few years back, and I put it on YouTube. Maybe we'll put a link if you guys are interested. It's a little bit more steps involved into creating those certificates, but it's doable if you want to try it in a lab environment. And it's nice. You'll be able to play with the certificate, install it on your phone, and see if you can connect. And so it's a nice little setup. And as you can see, it probably took us like half an hour here to configure everything because we were just explaining everything. But if you just follow a couple of comments with it, it's going to take you less than 10-15 minutes. And maybe we can work with the guys to include it into the next image. I don't know. We'll see what they say.
Yeah, it's worth giving them the feedback, and we'll also include a link of where to get a WLAN Pi if this is something you're interested in. It's definitely a useful tool to have and do a lot of different Wi-Fi tests with. You could also help in the development of WLAN Pi. I'm sure they'll accept the help, especially when it comes to documentation as well. So hopefully this will encourage you to try this out, learn a little bit more without having to mess with your production environment. You could at least stage up a different SSID, tie this Radius server to the WLAN Pi, and you're off running.
And also, I should mention that you could also use, there's a service in the cloud called Jump Cloud that allows you to also use, like quickly deploy Radius server. So you can use that as well. WLAN Pi is cooler though, because it's local to you, and you can really get into FreeRADIUS and see how everything works. So
yeah, you can get really advanced with it, but we just showed you the core basics of getting it to work.
Exactly. So let us know, what you think about this. Let us know if you managed to bring it one step further and configure IP TLS and stuff like that. That would be nice to know. That's it for me, I think, for this one. Well,
all right. Awesome.
You can
Great
clap.
Demo.
It was successful. Yeah,
it was a successful demo. Yeah, I'll give you another applause for that. I think that's worth it. Being able to get that demo running and do it successfully while we record without major issues. I think that's awesome, especially using Reflector. So if you guys have any questions, be sure to leave us any comments down in the show notes. Go to cleartosend.net and check out this episode. And if you want to visually see the lab that Francois did, head over to our YouTube channel. We'll also have that video there for you to watch as well. So we want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you guys. Have a good week. Bye-bye.